Over 62% of recent ICE arrests in 2025 targeted immigrants with no criminal convictions. Entire families are being taken, no charges, no warnings. Is this how mass deportation begins? 1. The promise, a focus on criminals. From day one of Trump's second term in January 2025, immigration enforcement took center stage. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller emphasized that ICE would focus on criminal aliens, those with convictions for gang activity, assault, firearms offenses, or drug trafficking. The messaging was clear: if you're undocumented but law-abiding, you're not the target. At a February 2025 rally in Arizona, Trump declared, "We're going after the murderers, the drug lords, the worst of the worst, not your hardworking neighbor who's been here for years." But the reality on the ground tells a different story. ICE's actions are casting a much wider net, ensnaring thousands of immigrants with no criminal record. The disconnect between rhetoric and reality is stark, and the numbers don't lie. 2. The reality, non-criminal arrest surge. According to a July 2025 DHS report, ICE made 66,463 interior arrests in Trump's first 100 days, over 660 arrests per day, an unprecedented pace. ICE claims 75% of those arrested had criminal convictions or pending charges, including 2,288 gang members and 498 accused or convicted of murder. But in cities like Los Angeles and New York, nearly 62% of detainees, about 41,206 people, had no convictions, per data from the Deportation Data Project and outlets like Axios and PBS. By June 2025, ICE held 59,000 detainees, with 47%, 27,730 individuals, having no criminal record, marking an 807% increase in non-criminal detentions from January. In Los Angeles, 70% of recent arrests involved non-criminals, including DACA applicants and long-term residents. For example, in Texas, an 18-year-old DACA applicant named Carlos was detained during a routine check-in, despite being a high school student with no criminal history, according to NPR. These cases are not isolated, they're part of a broader pattern that contradicts the administration's stated focus. 3. Why are non-criminals being detained? A combination of internal mandates and policy shifts drives these detentions. Here's what's fueling the surge. Arrest quotas, a leaked May 2025 ICE directive, reported by The Guardian, revealed pressure to meet arrest quotas of 3,000 per day, aiming to deport 1 million undocumented immigrants annually, a historic target. Limited criminal targets. ICE estimated 435,000 unauthorized immigrants with convictions were not in custody in July 2024, but with fewer criminal targets, agents turned to non-criminals to meet quotas. Expanded enforcement. The administration expanded expedited removal nationwide, bypassing immigration hearings, and revoked Obama-era protections for sensitive locations like schools and churches. Policy changes. A July 2025 ICE memo barred immigrants fighting deportation from bond hearings, leading to prolonged detentions for non-criminals, including long-term residents. This includes visa overstays, asylum seekers, and even legal permanent residents caught in administrative errors. For instance, Mahmoud Khalil, a Venezuelan green card holder, was detained in Los Angeles without charges, sparking protests. Plainclothes ICE agents now detain parents at school drop-offs or near medical clinics, and the termination of temporary protected status, TPS, for countries like Honduras and Venezuela has left many previously protected immigrants vulnerable. 4. Sensitive locations and community fear. The return to sensitive location arrests is alarming. In January 2025, the administration lifted restrictions on ICE activity near schools, hospitals, and churches. The Washington Post reported parents detained near school buses and others apprehended outside medical clinics, creating widespread fear in immigrant communities. The National Immigration Law Center notes that parents are preparing custody plans for their children in case of sudden arrests. Churches are offering sanctuary to those at risk, while schools in cities like Chicago and New York are updating emergency contact policies to protect students. Even non-criminal immigrants with decades of U.S. residency or pending legal status applications are not safe from ICE's reach. 5. Why are farm raids exempt? Not all sectors face equal scrutiny. In June 2025, the New York Times reported that ICE paused large-scale raids on agricultural operations after lobbying from farm groups and Midwest state leaders. Undocumented workers make up about 17% of the U.S. agricultural workforce, per a 2019 study. Mass deportations in this sector would disrupt the food supply chain, spike grocery prices, and threaten economic stability. While urban families face aggressive raids, rural businesses reliant on undocumented labor are quietly shielded. This selective enforcement raises questions about fairness and whether the policy prioritizes public safety or serves specific economic interests. 6. Legal and economic challenges. Civil rights groups like the ACLU and the National Immigration Law Center are fighting back in federal court, arguing that detaining non-criminals without due process violates the Fifth Amendment. A notable case involves Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a Venezuelan deported under the Alien Enemies Act despite no criminal ties and years of compliance with ICE check-ins. Federal judges in California and New York have issued temporary injunctions limiting non-criminal detentions, but enforcement continues aggressively in other states. Economically, deporting 1 million immigrants annually could be catastrophic. Undocumented workers make up 9% of construction and key hospitality roles. Removing them could cause labor shortages, inflate wages, and hurt small businesses. Trump allies in the business community have privately warned against overreach, per Politico. As of July 2025, deportations stand at 239,000 to 253,000, far below the 1 million goal, due to court backlogs and resistance from countries like Colombia refusing mass returns. 7. Could this lead to mass deportation without debate? The administration's strategy could enable mass deportation with minimal public scrutiny. Here's how. Lack of transparency. ICE stopped publishing daily arrest data, forcing groups like the Deportation Data Project to rely on Freedom of Information Act lawsuits. Expedited removal. Bypassing immigration hearings speeds up deportations. Massive funding. A July 2025 budget bill allocated $170 billion for enforcement, including $45 billion for new detention centers, potentially doubling capacity to 100,000 beds. Legal maneuvers. Federal prosecutors dismiss immigration cases, allowing ICE to arrest individuals outside courtrooms for immediate deportation proceedings. Protests, like a 1,500-person rally in Los Angeles in July 2025, show growing resistance. Legal challenges and economic pushback from industries like agriculture may force some debate. However, the administration's use of the National Guard to quell dissent and proposals for facilities like Alligator Alcatraz in Florida suggest aggressive tactics to suppress opposition, potentially enabling mass deportation with limited public input. 8. What immigrants need to know in 2025. If you're undocumented, even without a criminal record, there's no blanket protection. Here's how to stay safe. Consult an immigration attorney to navigate asylum, TPS, or DACA cases. Know your rights. You can remain silent and request an attorney during ICE encounters. Keep documentation like proof of residency or legal applications ready. Avoid risky public spaces near schools or where ICE operates. Stay informed. Policies change monthly. Follow trusted sources like Immiscope. The data doesn't lie. Trump's policy targets far more than criminals. With 62% of recent ICE arrests involving non-criminals and enforcement hitting sensitive locations, families are at risk. The push for 1 million deportations a year, backed by massive funding and legal loopholes, could bypass public debate. Resistance from courts, communities, and businesses shows the fight isn't over. Are you or someone you know affected? Share your story in the comments. Subscribe to Immiscope for updates on ICE's moves, DACA 2.0, and a secret tracking program we'll expose next. Hit like, turn on notifications, and stay vigilant. We'll see you in the next video.